Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Shaila Sheikh, consultant endocrinologist at Saifi Hospital, saying a hi to you from Nair Hospital, my alma mater. Welcome to the first metabolic webinar, the first concept of its kind. And today I am going to go and pick up Pia, my very good friend, a co-endocrinologist, and we are going to take you to Hanging Garden, show you the sights over there, talk science at the same time, and then of course come back here so that you and me can spend some great moments together with some fantastic science added to it. I'm so glad we could make it today, you know. It's been
Shaila,
ages.
I haven't gone out to exercise for so long. You called today, I said, chalo, I take the opportunity to meet you, get out for a walk and start some exercise. It's been a difficult time.
It's been crazy. I mean, I think COVID has been tough, not only on us, Priya has been tough on everybody. Especially patients, I think, you know, with their lifestyles also going for a toss. What's your observation been, Priya?
You know, so Shaila, I feel I've had two types of patients. Some patients who've been very on top of things have taken this opportunity to, you know, take care of their lifestyles. They have come controlled. But then a big number, sleeping more, eating more, chilling more, perfect excuse not to do anything. Everybody's put on weight and come.
Yeah.
So, you know, to get those patients back into the groove like it's taking us time,
Yes.
it's not easy to tell patients anymore.
It's not. And I think the stress also, Priya. Stress is worsening
No,
things.
people have gone through different things, Shaila. I mean, the stories you hear of patients, it's really been tough.
It's disheartening.
Yeah, it is.
It's very disheartening. And now the worst part is, you know, now since it's slowly everybody's limping back to normalcy,
Yeah.
the biggest issue which we are facing now is the people are coming back to us with problems
Yes.
which are associated with all these issues that
Obesity
they face.
related, yeah.
Big time, na?
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of PCOS, Priya, especially in the younger age group. Is it just, you think, I mean, the weight gain which has contributed, or it is, you know, all the hormonal issues?
I think it's just a combination, right? The obesity, one big factor, the stress, another big factor. And then people with, you know, if they've got any issues like their delayed periods and all of that during COVID times, just ignoring all of these things. We're all behind a mask. Who cares about the hair? Who cares about the acne maybe? So I don't know what it is. And now they're coming with these florid symptoms now, you know?
Yeah. And I think that now suddenly it's worrying them.
Yeah.
And everybody wants a quick fix solution, which is just not happening.
That's
I think
correct.
most of the time the biggest issue is that, you know, they wanted something quick fix. And are you seeing a situation, Priya, where, you know, there's so many more investigations being done, so many, especially those sheaves of investigations and all kinds of reports. I see patients suddenly coming to me just with a single sonography and telling me, okay, ma'am, and they're coming to me with the diagnosis.
Correct.
Ma'am, I have PCOD.
Dr. Google, Shaila, Dr. Google.
And they come to you and tell you, ma'am, I have PCOD.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, relax, sit. On what basis are you saying you have
Correct.
PCOD?
Correct.
So, I mean, what exactly do you tell them, Priya? What
So
would you
I think
tell
for
them?
me, the biggest education that I have to give them that your ultrasound is not your single diagnostic method. That is not the way PCOS is diagnosed, right? It has to be this whole complex kind of assessment of criteria, which is what you and I have trained to do. So it's whether it's a, you know, combination of your irregular periods and alongside with your hyperandrogenism, whatever clinical, biochemical, each of them has this complete metabolic profile done from the labs these days. And the sono is one part of the whole segment also as well.
And I think the interpretation of the sono also.
Exactly.
Priya, I think this PCOD, mild variant of PCOD has become such a common sono diagnosis that I just don't understand.
No, I think radiologists also, from that perspective, I think there has to be an overall probably change in the way we, because the anxiety that diagnosis causes is just immense.
It's immense. Because you have mothers who are panicking think the first question people ask me, ma'am, is it going to influence their fertility?
Correct.
What kind of long-term implications is as my child has suddenly been diagnosed with PCOD? And that I think that also needs to be taken into account. I think when we are interpreting the report also, I think that's something which is very, very
important also as well.
And clinically also, I think it's very important that, clinical markers are kept in mind.
Correct.
Because often I think with this present emphasis on, labs and the fact that we are not looking at patients clinically, maybe looking at patients through mass and things like that, a lot of clinical markers of insulin resistance.
I think the whole, probably video consultations are hiding a lot of things also as well.
Yes. Priya, one thing which I've always wondered about, since we say that we have all our criteria, everything is so clear cut, but even then, in clinical practice, a lot of us don't apply the criteria. Is it very confusing? Are there too many?
I feel ultimately, Shaila, it's a very complex disorder. So many complex presentations, so many doors of entry, patients meeting a gynac, an endo, a derm, a cardio, medicine. So the patients already are confused about who's the right doctor to go to. And finally, look at the number of criteria. The Rotterdam criteria, the AEPCOS criteria, now the ESHRE criteria, each one with some different understanding. I think it's tough for even physicians to understand what to apply. So I think the final consensus now, what I tend to follow, Shaila, now is more about the Rotterdam-based ESHRE criteria, which is, kind of in my head has made some sense. And that is what I say, the 2 out of the 3, the hyperandrogenism, the oligomenorrhea, and the PCOS appearance on ultrasound, which of course, this is more applicable to older women. For adolescents, it's a totally different, kind of thought process that we have to apply also as well. But making sure that the criteria are satisfied is important as well. And one more aspect is about the differentials, which is what I feel people are missing out on, making sure that that's not there. And so, I don't know, do you do a big workup on the differentials also then, Shaila?
I think, Priya, that's mandatory.
Yeah.
Because the main reason the patient comes to you, the patient may come to you with a report of a sonography, but the bottom line remains that unless you can rule out the differentials, you are actually going to miss the bus.
Correct.
And often what happens is, for example, simple disorders, you need to be able to rule out, you need to be sure the patient doesn't have hypothyroidism.
Which is so common.
And there's so much of mimicking,
Correct.
I mean, sometimes patients may come to a typical symptomatology looking like PCOS and actually have just simple hypothyroidism, which is so easily treatable.
Right.
Hyperprolactinemia is another disorder which you should rule out.
Yes,
you can't
absolutely.
afford not to rule that out.
That is correct.
Some of the uncommon disorders, Priya, is also late onset CH.
Right.
I would definitely want to rule that out because that has implications for us.
Right.
And also rarely Cushing's.
Correct.
I think we should be aware of this because if you're not aware of it, you're going to really come up with a wrong diagnosis.
Correct. Absolutely.
So, and that's the area where actually the investigations matter.
Correct.
I often see our friends, some of them doing only an FSH LH prolactin and diagnosing the patient with PCOS.
Correct.
I think that should not be done. I think it's very important that we talk in terms of testosterone, we talk in terms of a free androgen index and things like that to understand better. Because finally, Priya, it's a very, very, I mean, how do I say, a very, very distressing disorder also.
That is correct.
Because, the hirsutism, the acne, I mean, that becomes very, very disturbing, especially for an adolescent kid, for a girl growing in the early 20s.
Right.
And of course, it's long-term implications, which I'm sure we'll get into, because I think that is actually
for you and me our important thing.
Yes.
Shaila, talking about differentials, I feel there are these rare things, right, that we really need to catch. I find girls, anorexia nervosa, bulimia, premature ovarian failure, these kind of things, I feel that is where our acumen really needs to come in, because otherwise routinely everybody with these symptoms, this kind of symptomatology, PCOS, automatic diagnosis, but and then they're put on estrogen progesterone for years, not getting withdrawal with progesterone, and then getting incorrectly diagnosed, infertility becoming a major issue later on then.
And infertility can become a major issue.
It is, and that is often the presenting part of so many, distressing part for so many people.
So I think that is something also, infertility can be a very, very major presenting factor, especially in your, 20s and 30s.
So that's the whole thing, at different age groups, girls are presenting so differently, right? So it goes right from menarche all the way to beyond menopause. And at every age group, you have a different sort of problem coming in. When we were young, Shaila, a little bit of missed period, a little bit of acne, we took in our stride. But nowadays, girls are more conscious, right? So one little pimple, little missed periods, people are more aware. And then in 20s, 30s, the infertility, then in their 40s, 50s, you come with all the metabolic issues that you and I will see for the first time, a woman coming with diabetes. But actually, this is PCOS, not diagnosed from a long time ago.
And I think it's very important that we diagnose PCOS, Priya, because we all know that it has long-term implications.
Absolutely.
Now. And if you're able to treat it right and treat it early, you are going to be able to make a difference not only to the quality of life, the quantity of life.
So true.
So many metabolic disorders, be it diabetes, be it dyslipidemia, be it hypertension, be it hypertension. Actually, the entire metabolic syndrome.
Totally
so
true.
That is something which we can't afford to forget.
Ignore.
Because
Correct.
that's where you make a difference.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the huge epidemic of diabetes that we are seeing,
yes,
it is almost, the PCOS part is almost walking hand in hand
Absolutely.
with that at 2 decades
Correct.
earlier.
Correct.
So you make a difference here and you're going to be able to make a very big difference.
Shaila, in my mind, it is no matter whether the girl is coming with delayed periods or acne or hirsutism or whatever it might be, I think these are windows for us to actually target the long-term sequelae.
Yes.
So no matter, it's that time that we have to talk to them, get into the whole lifestyle change. It's, part of things from there on, because what we are looking to avoid is a long-term story. That is the end game at the end of the day.
Yeah. And lifestyle, Priya, somehow, I do not know. I've always faced a very uphill task. I don't know whether it's, something which, I guess we are not. I believe that, start early.
Yes.
I mean, start maybe as early as maybe when they are kids, with
Yes.
increased activity
Right.
and a little more healthy eating.
Correct.
And that will pay off dividends in the long run.
Right.
Because though you and me all the time say 150 minutes of activity
Right.
per week.
Shaila, how much are you and I putting in, for God's sake? It's like tough, no?
But it's like, I have this by rote, like 150 minutes per week.
Right.
But it doesn't simply work out that
Correct.
way.
Right.
And then there's a lot of yo-yo happening.
Yes.
Patients do it, then they stop it, then they do it, then they
Yes.
stop it.
And it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, also that we should be, maybe emphasizing more.
Correct.
Maybe starting at a younger age,
Right.
explaining to them that, and now I try to incorporate simple things like, activity in whatever you're doing.
Right.
For example, if you're sitting and talking, I tell them use the phone and walk and talk.
Correct.
I mean, I literally
Yes.
tell them walk and talk.
Right.
Use the stairs.
Right.
Park your car or vehicle 2 blocks away. Simple things
Right.
like that.
Just increase your step count.
Yeah, and the other day in some meeting, Pia, somebody was talking to me. They said now we should start taking webinars also standing. Maybe it will burn a few calories.
Honestly, I think you should introduce it when you're a society member. That's what you need to do, Shaila.
I think that will
Member, no, up there. I mean, sorry. Absolutely true.
It's
No, I
that
agree.
way. I mean, and I think diet also, Pia.
Yeah. Ashela, I think each and every one of us, no matter whom the patient goes to, whether it's a dermatologist or a gynecologist or an endocrinologist, each and every one of us needs to take out that 1 minute to revise the patient what they're doing on their lifestyle front. Because if we don't revisit it, the patient just feels a little bit of that push. Something goes into their minds, that little change that they can make, I think is really, really important as well. I take a lot of help from my nutritionists and educators also at the same time, because I feel my role is to talk to them about the whole, PCOS, the long term of PCOS, and I feel that little reinforcement that comes in from educators, if we have that facility, I think we really need to take it as well to re-emphasize.
Totally agree. And I think now things have become much more easily with, so much of influencing, which you can also do even if you're physically not able to do it, through so many other media, which is possible.
Correct.
Yeah, but suppose somebody is just not willing to sort of, go that extra mile with lifestyle, which there are a number of patients of mine, believe me.
Right.
I mean, it's just sometimes impossible to get them to do that extra bit which is required. Then how would we really manage them?
I think it's always at the end of the day, I never give up on lifestyle, Shaila. I think it just has to be re-emphasized over and over again. But like you said, there's going to be a good number of people, busy professionals, you and me, right? Yeah. I mean, I think so. It is so difficult to find that.
You and me on record.
No, it's like literally finding that 25th hour in a day to get to that exercise, right? It's the last thing that we want to leave for in the day. So that's often tough. But I think that's where really it's about that dialogue with the patient about if we want to use the help of medications. Because things like hirsutism, acne are not easy symptoms to endure. For that girl already with so many self-esteem issues, body image issues, I think it is really our role to also assist with the use of the right medication at the right time, with the agreement of the patient, her mother if necessary, or whoever the family member is, about what medications we can use in conjunction in order to get the best results, have the girl feel good about herself. Because I think this, the depression part of thing is really very large.
Because the depression and, Pia, PCOS somehow has become synonymous with infertility.
Correct.
I mean, so the moment the patient's family sees a diagnosis of PCOS now, what really starts worrying them is the
fertility issue.
Pia, how does it feel?
My
at
God,
Nair?
Shella, I don't know, I'm coming back here after so long. I was here between 90 to 96 in undergrad. How about you?
I did my DM from your Nair.
Oh my God, so I think I must have left here and
I
you've
came
come in over
I
here.
came in
My
to
God,
do
it feels
DM.
like a
It
real
feels
long
great.
time.
It really feels great. It's
Yeah.
always like,
But it's
coming
good to be
back.
back. I'm meeting all my batchmates over here today.
Oh,
So it's like a great feeling to be back here
That's
also.
great.
As well.
Have great fun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
That's superb.
Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about. Shella, what do you feel about is the acceptance of medications with your patients? We were just, after lifestyle, we were talking about next steps.
I think, Pia, a lot of patients actually are very keen on medication.
Really?
Yeah, because a number of patients, especially if they're dealing with problems like hirsutism, acne and things like that, then they are very keen that, we go on some form of medication.
Right.
Because the perception is that, ma'am, is lifestyle going to do it all for me?
Correct.
And then because we all know lifestyle works much slowly,
Yes.
so they prefer at least to be on medication for some time till we keep on reiterating that, okay, they need to really be particular about the lifestyle and get things back in streamline and in order.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
that is the biggest issue we have. But I face a very big problem, Pia. The moment you talk in terms of any kind of E plus P, estrogen progesterone
Yes.
combination,
Yes.
it's an absolute alarm thing. People
Correct.
are like, oh my God, ma'am, are you giving us the contraceptive pill? My daughter is unmarried. What
Right.
implications is going to be
Right.
having? Or even in a patient, for example, a patient who's planning fertility also, when you
Yes.
tell them you first need to sort this out with an E plus P,
Yes.
they really get very, very hassled and
about
worked
it.
up about it.
Right.
What has your experience
So
been?
Shella,
Pia?
I will tell them two things. I will always say that estrogen plus progesterone, the OCP, is used by millions of women across the world for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
Right? Be it heavy periods, light periods, delayed periods, ovarian cysts, so many different
very
reasons. And PCOD is one of the reasons why this is also used not for its contraceptive purposes, but because of, and I explain to them what is the role of the estrogen part, especially when they have cosmetic symptoms. What is the role of the progesterone part also, especially when there's a menstrual issue, all of that as well. So I think when I break it down for them, there is a little more understanding. Secondly, also, I think what I tend to do is I will always, if in case there's a mother involved, that I know it's going to be closed doors, like you said, with regards to acceptance of a contraceptive pill, I will, while taking the maybe it's an older teenage girl, like 19, 20-year-old, etc. I will ask them in private when I'm examining them whether they are sexually active, actually.
Yeah, very important.
So because if they are, and I think that discussion, because a lot of girls have read up about this.
Yes.
I think today avoiding pregnancy in these kind of kids, that fear, they're already getting delayed periods. You never know whether you're pregnant. So imagine month upon month, if you're not getting your period on time, the fear of getting pregnant is high if you're sexually active. So I think that after discussing, I think it's all about that conversation regarding what is the best fit for the girl in front of us, for the woman in front of us in terms of her needs. Cosmetic, menstrual, you want the contraceptive part of it as well. So I think all of that, kind of helps us tailor what the right medication is.
I think that would be the absolutely right outlook, Pia. Because unless you design therapy for your patients now, and I think it's a much more informed world, Pia.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have that kind of conversation with your patient, it's just not going to work out.
And patients go home unhappy.
Yes,
OCP likh liya,
yes.
I find sometimes a challenge, in fact, with metformin, Shella, that diabetes drug, they go to the pharmacist and they're saying that, diabetes drug has been given to you.
And you get an SOS call thinking that you've sleepwalked.
Do I have diabetes and you never spoke about it and things like that. So what is your experience on that front then?
I agree with you. I do receive these calls where, patients get very, they almost panic the moment the pharmacist tells them, oh, do you have diabetes, kind of a thing.
Correct.
To totally agree. But metformin does give us very good results, Pia.
Of course.
My personal experience, especially in our Asian subset, is that it gives you very good results.
Right.
Works very well as an insulin sensitizer.
Yes.
And I'm personally very, very happy with metformin.
Correct.
To be very honest.
I think all of us, we Indians are insulin resistant.
Yes,
At the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That gene is, that thrifty gene is there in all of us. So I do agree that metformin makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
and there are
absolutely.
times when, I continue metformin sometimes even till the first pregnancy.
I agree.
just continue. I tell them stay on the metformin.
Right.
I just cover them up for vitamin B12 deficiency,
Yes.
because that's the only thing which I
Yes.
really worry about. If they're not having any tolerance issues with metformin,
Correct.
I will cover them up with that. And
Correct.
I'll most probably tell them you continue it maybe till the first 3 months of pregnancy, and then we can stop the metformin.
Right.
That works out pretty well, pretty smoothly.
Correct.
They are much more better, I feel, with that
yes,
metformin.
absolutely.
But another issue which we've always faced, Pia, is a lot of symptomatic treatment. Symptomatic,
Correct.
for example, patients may have hirsutism, patients
Right.
have a lot of acne,
Yes.
and they have some marriage to attend.
Yes.
And they're like, ma'am, please do something
Yeah.
about this more
Yeah.
than anything
Yeah.
else.
Absolutely.
I mean, would you use additional drugs to help them? And the other big problem which I face, Priya, is when you give them medication, patients come to your follow-up after 3 months, especially when you're using anti-androgens,
Yes.
and they expect magical results.
Correct.
Which again is not really happening. So what
Correct.
has your experience been with that?
So, I will always, for the typical kind of patients we discussed, where an OCP is a big no-no, I think for them, I will tell them there are maybe drugs like your finasteride, spironolactone. Each of us has different experiences with all of this. But I tell them that these are available, so if they're not immediately ready, I think these drugs do help. Of course, I think the results one gets with the OCP are definitely better.
Right.
But then this is a choice that I allow them to make.
Okay.
Because then, tell them results will not be as much, but take your choice. I always also tell them get back to your dermatologist as well. So if
Yeah,
they
I
want
think
that, if
that's
they are
important.
anti the whole hormonal treatment again, then I will always give them that option and keep it as a, like an open platter. It's a
Yes.
menu for you to choose from.
Yes.
I can guide you, I will discuss with you pros and cons, but at the end of the day, these are the available options as well.
Yeah, because especially when I personally prefer if I'm using spironolactone, Priya, I prefer using it with an E+P because of the intermenstrual bleeding.
Correct.
Because sometimes there's
Yes,
so much of
absolutely.
an overlap,
Yes.
So when you're using this specifically, I'm a little more careful,
Yes.
and I always try to convince them, no, please go on an E+P and then use this maybe along with
Side by
this,
side.
so that you get better benefit as far as your hirsutism is concerned.
Correct.
And your acne is also concerned. I find sometimes these combination therapies, the way we're using them in our diabetic patients,
Correct.
they work pretty well in
So I
our
tend to
patients.
add on like an aldactone and all of that, like a step at a time. So if they've stepped on, started with one, I generally will reserve it for next step. So that way they also, I feel there's a lot of fatigue in these women about how long, right? Because is this going to be forever? I think that kind of realization that this is a chronic condition, and especially in their teens and 20s when maybe the cosmetic issues are high, you're going to continue to need these medications till you get your results. So as a result, that kind of thing, that it's a very hard pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, once they get their results, they are actually happy to continue also as well. It's a matter of constant education also as well.
I agree. Pia, as far as fertility is concerned,
Yes.
we know fertility is a very big issue as far as PCOD goes.
Yes.
I mean, we do use a lot of clomiphene citrate also
Correct.
to induce our patients
Yes.
during when they are
Yes.
planning a pregnancy. So I mean, most of us would continue metformin and
Metformin
then
as
give
well.
a clomiphene citrate.
Correct.
I mean, and I think that gives us reasonably good results. Of
Correct.
course, requires additional monitoring and
Yes.
things like
Yes.
that. But I mean, you think that is a good way forward in the patients who require fertility?
Fertility. So yes, I will try with some of these basics. I generally do get them under a gynecologist colleague also at the same time once they go into that whole thing, because at the end of the day, we can't be concerned about the cosmetic issues. Anti-androgens, one has to explain to them that you can't get pregnant, because if you're taking an anti-androgen and you get pregnant on that, it will cause undervirilization of that unborn fetus. So as a result of which, I will then have them go under a gynecologist's care when they are planning, because then there's no role of all of these kind of things.
very
Metformin and then clomiphene, I tell them, for now, we have to put the cosmetic issues aside and move on with the fertility as the primary goal now.
So, I mean, the big message I think both of us are trying to give, Pia, is that it is going to be a multidisciplinary approach.
Correct,
Like,
absolutely.
you've spoken about patients you working in tandem with the dermat.
Yes.
We've just spoken about working in tandem with the gynecologist.
Yes.
So, I think what is very important is that we all work as a team so
Correct.
that your patient benefits at the end of the
Correct,
road.
correct.
And if we go to the last segment, which I personally and you also
Yes.
think is the most important
Absolutely,
segment,
yes, yes.
is the metabolic disorders
Correct,
associated with
correct.
PCOD.
Yes.
I mean, be it diabetes, be it dyslipidemia,
Yes.
be it hypertension, be it hyperuricemia. Pia, you think that we need to give a stronger message that when you're diagnosing your patients with any kind of
Right.
PCOD disorder, you need to keep in mind at all points of time that if you're not careful now, you're potentially, like a
Right.
sitting duck for all these
Right.
complications.
So I feel, Shaila, there's a time and place for everything. All of these girls, I always feel that at the back of my mind, there's a huge element of depression. Telling them firstly that your periods, they've come with this acne, they've come with hirsutism, they've come with being overweight, they're dealing with enough. So I feel in my head that there is a time, education is key. follow-ups can be scarce, like you and I know with all of these. I think we both must have seen the same patients in Bombay coming circulating to all of us. So at the end of the day, I think that explaining to them at some part that the reason for lifestyle modification on an ongoing basis is very important. It's not just for the today of the PCOS symptoms, but it is more for the tomorrow. Avoiding the long-term complications of diabetes, and I think besides the metabolic ones, things which are a little under the cover, like obstructive sleep apnea, like endometrial cancer if their periods have been very irregular. And for me, the biggest one is always depression. I feel that no matter through which door the patient enters, all of us have to be very cognizant about the fact that there is a huge amount of underlying body image disorder, depression. So I say no matter derm, endo, gynac, wherever. That is one, that psychological aspect is something that we should never forget.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think that is the best part of this conversation, Priya, that we need to take mental health, we need to be more aware of the mental health of our patients. Sometimes we are, sometimes we become so tuned only to talking in terms of physical symptoms, lab abnormalities and drugs that we don't really realize there's a totally different another component of the mental health.
I think sometimes as endocrinologists, honestly, Shaila, you and I are more sometimes like psychologists almost. A lot of counseling on this front also goes in also as well.
Yes.
So totally, that's very important.
Totally agree. Absolutely. It's been fantastic talking to you. I'm so glad I met you today.
Hello friends, I'm Dr. Rajiv Kovil. I hope you all had a wonderful insight into what happens in the life of people with PCOS and women, how they go through a lot of issues when they have polycystic ovarian syndrome. One needs to understand that as Dr. Shaila Sheikh and Dr. Pia Balani were discussing, that obesity seems to be the harbinger for metabolic syndrome and then issues on metabolic issues and reproductive issues like polycystic ovarian syndrome. There are a lot of metabolic issues in people which drives the epidemic of kidney disease, heart disease and as also polycystic ovarian syndrome. And polycystic ovarian syndrome, there's a huge dilemma in diagnosis and there's a huge dilemma and fear related to the word itself. And most importantly, a lot of patients come to you with already a diagnosis of polycystic ovaries. That is what our two experts today reiterated, that just the appearance of cysts in the ovaries doesn't make you having polycystic ovarian syndrome. You need to have at least one feature of hyperandrogenism. You need to have at least one feature of menstrual irregularity and maybe sonographic appearance of cysts in the ovaries. So that is extremely important. If you look at the Rotterdam score for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which I think all of you all should kind of go back and read, so that there is no misdiagnosis, there is no overdiagnosis of this very important issue, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Secondly, polycystic ovarian syndrome requires a complete physical examination, which both our experts also alluded to. Also, they require a lot of investigations. Among the investigations, LH-FSH ratio, testosterone, DHEA, fasting postprandial blood sugars, lipid profile, also HbA1c and also liver function tests, because a lot of people with polycystic ovarian syndrome would have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, would have dyslipidemia, would be pre-diabetics. So it's very, very important that we screen these patients for also other metabolic issues, and that's where our role as metabolic physicians come in, that we can identify these metabolic issues in these patients and make sure we can prevent progression not only in their reproductive health but also in their metabolic health and cardiovascular health. So the goal of treatment of polycystic ovarian syndrome is not just cosmetic, is not just trying to reduce weight, not just trying to reduce acne, but it is a holistic way of treatment where you need to make sure that you are able to not only prevent miscarriages when they get pregnant, also make sure their reproductive life is good, make sure their quality life is not compromised by any kind of menstrual irregularities. We can prevent the progression to type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. We can reduce obesity. Also, we can reduce the cardiovascular risk. So in treatment, when the patient maybe in menarche or in their early teens when they come to you, or in their early 20s when they come to you for infertility, The treatment could encompass probably metformin. You could have oral contraceptives be given, because that is the basics of treatment to make sure that the menstrual irregularities are taken care of. You can also probably sometimes use spironolactone if the testosterone is very high. You can also make sure of a lot of weight loss strategies to make sure these patients are brought to target, and we are also helping them in their cosmetic, reproductive, metabolic and cardiovascular health. Thank you all for a patient watching, and we'll get back to you with the next episode of the Metabolic Road in Hour. Thank you so much.